Okay, this one we're going to be talking about the Portland incident. We're probably going to allude to the incidents out in Kenosha, and we're going to allude to it being that it's not as big as people make it out to be in as Kenosha. It's kind of relegated to a smaller area, which is not being shown. But when we go out to the stuff in Portland, we're going to be this is mainly going to be talking about the non-aggression principle, which is one of the foundations of the libertarian movement, and why it's very, very important, especially now more than ever, because we have two different groups that essentially were conflicting with each other, and we find these people that are just going after each other, and that basically, and you'll have usually an outside group, it might be one, it might be two, that'll essentially go after each other with it, and it ends up creating problems. Now, we don't need agitators in these areas with it because these areas are already suffering enough because of events, and we don't need this, and we don't need agitators either from federal officials. We don't need agitators being from either group with it, of these national groups that are basically pushing for more advertising money, being from like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, any of these other groups that are trying to push for money. You'll look and see a bunch of advertisements, and they're all agitators. We don't need any agitators in these areas. They basically, all they are doing is making things much worse. And we find every single time that this happens is someone gets killed, and it basically makes things worse than what was initially there. And or we bring out federal officials, and it's basically federalization of the police, which is not what we want. We want local policing so that they can handle what's going on. And this whole idea of just basically of not being aggressive toward your neighbor, and it's not happening. And frankly, they're throwing it out the door. And this is, I'm not blaming left wing. I'm not siding with left wing. I'm not siding with right wing. I'm blaming both sides. We find mobs. We find mobs that are mobbing people with it, mobbing politicians, especially like when it comes to people like Rand Paul. Now, Rand Paul and his wife are people that actually side with liberty. And when it comes down to it, these are the last people that you want to be, that you should be going after. They're the ones that are actually preaching peace, and you're basically trying to kill them. They're the ones that have basically stated that they want people to get out of wars. They're the ones that basically deal of the non-aggression principle. And just a simple principle is just common respect between people. And we find these Trump fanboys. We find these these people, these anti-Trumpers. We find these the Antifa people, the Black Lives Matter people. Because the Black Lives Matter is not even a real movement. It's just a bunch of sino-Marxists that are basically pushing for Maoist type of propaganda, and there's some people that have gotten caught up in it that they don't know exactly what it is, and this is basically what it is. So when you give money to it, that's what you're giving money to. And then you end up getting these people that basically go into areas and they create controversy. It's something that was very, very simple to start with, and then we have these things where we have the people who are just trying within the community, just trying to live their lives. They want to earn some money. They want to basically go to work, get their paycheck, go home, and that's number one. Number two is that everybody is basically in higher tensions because they can't do anything. So it's creating a lot more with it, and people need to be a lot more level-headed right now. And we have a bunch of power-hungry politicians right now out there on both sides of the aisle. And you have people like Trump who want to basically nationalize the police. And you have people on the other side who basically want to shut down the economy and basically play let's basically force people inside their homes and tell them never to leave. And you have the media trying to play into this whole thing as well, trying to state that, oh, this coronavirus is never going to go away. This is all playing into this. And when we start to see this, we start to see that this is all a bunch of garbage. And when we start to see that when people are starting to basically just attack people over no reason whatsoever, we're seeing. And when it comes down to it, I think that people need to understand that I do not believe in any of those things, and I believe that they are complete statist garbage, and we need to essentially start preaching that we need to be acting as civilized people, and we're not finding that whatsoever. And this is what we're reduced to. We're reduced to complete and utter garbage, and people trying to maul each other out in the damn streets. And it doesn't matter what city you live in. It doesn't matter if the city is liberal, if the city leans liberal, the city leans conservative, or the city is considered what they consider a purple city, which is a mix of both. It doesn't matter what it is with it, that you're going to have problems. Now, luckily in my city with it, we haven't had any problems yet, but the fact is we have a mayor that wants to lock everybody down, and we've seen a couple of people out there, thank God, that we have open carry, that and individuals, we have a police force that does not buy into what the mayor's doing, and we have individuals that can open carry and defend themselves, and we don't have people that are actually committing property crime, and it leads to people that are able to respect one another. And with Kenosha, we end up seeing what ends up happening is when you let people just run right over, and you let a police officer essentially commit a horrible act, and you don't do anything about it. You see what ends up happening is they end up making a political issue, and they're able to run on it, and they're able to set ablaze your whole damn city. And this is just a complete lack of actual respect for people. Not only the people, you have people coming from out of state. They're actually doing all of this stuff, from either out of state or not even within the city. They're setting ablaze to actually Kenosha. They're going in, they're firebombing, and this is what's actually happening. And it's not within a large area that they're doing this, and they're destroying businesses, and this is what they're doing across the whole country. Then you're having the other side going into these areas, and they're basically setting their little minions in, and basically saying, "Oh, I want to shoot me a Black Lives Matter supporter," and which is basically, instead of actually trying to quell the violence, you have people who want to actually raise the tensions up, and this is complete garbage. You should not want to get these people who want to raise tensions up. That's the last thing you want to do. The last thing you want to do is get in the middle of things and actually want to become another agitator. You're just as bad as the people who are actually firebombing these up here and actually doing this stuff. Now, I'm originally from Illinois with it, and I do not believe that I've seen any evidence that supports that he was actually coming up here as a normal protester preaching for any type of sanity in the area with it. I do not see that with it because I highly doubt he would have came up here armed to begin with. He's not going to come up here armed to begin with if he's trying to preach sanity. Which what I feel that he was doing was he had an agenda in his mind that he wanted to go shoot someone that he felt that he didn't agree with. And this is what was going on from the start. He felt that he found someone that he didn't agree with, and boom, he shot him. Now, I do not believe that it was a first-degree murder, but I believe it would classify as a second-degree murder. And this is what actually goes on with it. It's really in the same lines as what the actual police were attempting with it. I mean, I don't believe it was a first-degree murder that they were attempting with it, but I believe it was what it called that they were not attempting to do anything with it, but because I believe that what it called that the suspect is probably not going to survive long with this, because essentially he's where he's has a paralysis. Initially, with paralysis, with it, you usually do not survive a very, very long time, and if he dies from the paralysis, it will be a homicide. If you die from complications of a paralysis, that is automatically labeled as a homicide, no matter what the case is. This is just what ends up happening. It's only it only comes if it's a case of if he's dies from other causes. Now, and this is what's going to happen. And the fact is we need to realize that this is what end up causing the whole thing with it. And we have the video on the whole thing with the police officer, and that was not respecting any type of like basic standards for arresting. And he should have been number one, immediately fired. Number two, he should basically he should have been immediately arrested. But the fact is that they slow walk the whole thing, because when it comes up here in Wisconsin, the judicial system is completely inept. I mean, I've seen cases up here in which people guilty of horrific child abuse are able to basically plead insanity when they basically would have gone down for attempted murder, remove their insanity plea, and all of a sudden, they don't have to deal with any criminal causes now. They don't have to go into an insane asylum, nor do they have to deal with any of the criminal cases. Now, when you do that in a normal state, you actually have to deal with that stuff. Now, this is something in which we're seeing in Wisconsin. Now, when we look at Portland, we're seeing that basically they're doing the same damn thing out there with when it comes down to how they're treating people. There's a lot of conflict out there and now you have some moron come and now you go up there. There's a moron group of these Trump supporters go up there, and it creates more violence. And when there was some type of quelling of violence for a while, for well more than a week, and it now creates another death up there. And we're not going to, trust me, we're not going to see a Trump victory because of this. We're going to see a Trump loss, because the fact is he's creating an opening for agitators. And it's quite disgusting that he has not talked against people doing this and stating for people to stay in their homes and stop going to these areas and agitating them, and stop agitating these other people, and then stop creating problems. Now, if you were he's just looking out for what can make him have headlines that he thinks are going to be positive. And in this case, it's not going to be positive. It's going to blow up right in his face, because people are sick of the damn violence. People are sick of the damn violence, and they're sick of all of his little Twitter tirades and all of his little bullying. And it's just gotten old. And if he thinks he's the outsider, he's not anymore. He's an insider. And frankly, people have gotten sick of this going against the idea of the non-aggression principle. People want some type of sanity now, and they're sick and tired of it. They're sick and tired of all this stuff, because it's been going on far too long. Because we had it under Obama, where we were having all of this stuff going on. We've had it under Trump, where all this stuff is going on with it, and people want some type of sanity in their damn streets, and they want to be able to go and actually walk through the streets and not be assaulted on either side of the aisle. Or if you support a third party, you do not want to be assaulted, regardless of what your personal beliefs are. And this has kind of become garbage, and people need to understand this. And that when it comes down to these political beliefs, that people need to end up cutting this out. And I know it's become a lot of a rant, but frankly, people like me, people like my mom, people like my dad, people in my whole neighborhood are frankly sick of it. there's my neighbor across the street who basically he works in basically in metal work, and he's even gotten sick of it from both sides. And I mean, you have all these people who've gotten sick of it from both sides, and they're regardless of what type of political ideology they have. So they're what it called. So everybody is wants this idea of the non-aggression principle in actually daily life. They want it where people can actually go out and actually respect each other, and we're not trying to assault each other. We're not trying to basically kill each other and kill other people in other different lands. They're sick of this. And the fact is we're people are sick of this interventionist overseas. Doesn't matter who it's coming from. It doesn't matter if it's coming from someone who's unhinged on the left, or someone what it called like a Trump, who basically can't even talk on the level of an actual adult. They want someone who actually is legitimate. And it's why some people have actually gone into supporting Biden, because Biden's at least a lot more sane with it, and it's why a lot of Trump's independents and third party supporters are starting to look at Joe Jorgensen as an option, because they're they're done with Trump. The only reason why they supported him was because he said he was going to audit the Federal Reserve and get out of wars. He has not gotten out of wars. He's stayed stagnant in those wars, and he's actually accelerated them. He's actually a bully on Twitter, and he's actually a complete moron on Twitter. All the violence in the street is accelerated. Uh, and when it comes down to the ideas of the Federal Reserve, all he's done is he's done the same exact stuff that Obama did, except he's even talking negative interest rates, was essentially stealing from people. This is not what people wanted. He's gone in the complete opposite direction, and people want some type of sanity. And I mean, they don't want their stuff to be stolen, either from government or from other people, and they want some type of level of sanity back in the society. And I think this speaks not only for this doesn't even speak from a partisan level. It doesn't go left or right. It just goes for everyone. People want to basically be able to live their lives basically free of all this basically all this violence from different activist groups, as well as violence from government. They want this stuff to end, and they don't want their stuff stolen from either activist groups or from the government. And this isn't an ideal that is a radical ideal of people, and this is what we want. But Trump hasn't done a damn thing with this. And if he wanted to help this stuff out, he can actually do that. He's not even moved a damn thing with that. And when it comes down to it, he needs to listen to people like Thomas Massey. But he's in fact insulted Thomas Massey several different times. And this is what the actual cases actually happened. Now I'm going to cut it here with it, because I think I've gone over all my points here, and I think this is about it. And thank you for listening to this rant, and bye everyone.